Welcome to the BXG podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet at the nexus of the universe and are melded as seamlessly as actors suing Disney.
Whoa.
Well, I am one of your hosts, Brenton Beswick, alongside my co-host, a guy that probably rushed right out to see Jungle Cruise this weekend, right?
Oh, yeah. A midnight show, of course.
Yeah. Contributed to the box office.
When I saw the box office numbers, I actually was like, oh, this came out this weekend.
Yeah.
That was what happened to me. So
Greg Filson, everybody. Greg
hello.
Filson. How are you this evening? How's it
good
going?
Going well. I actually I guess I can say it now. I was going to do my year recommendation. Filmed a pizza video with my buddy, Santa Barbara baker, Jonathan, out here in Santa Barbara. He does a lot of pizza videos on YouTube.
Okay.
You look him up, and I got to do one with him, which was super, super fun. We were in the very hot heat of his area though. So I got a little darker than even normal, and I'm still kind of reverberating from that heat. Yeah, so I did that, and it's Fiesta week, which means nothing to me, but something to some people in this.
Is that a now?
That's a siesta.
Oh.
That's a siesta. So I don't no naps, no sleeping. But other than that, things are okay, moving along. I'm not tired because I am tired. I'm tired because I was just so hot for such a long period of time.
Right.
But it was good chatting up with him. It's a long time since we used to work at the restaurant together. So it's good times. How are you, Brenton?
I can't complain. Getting ready for the beach here this weekend, Virginia Beach, going down. Gonna do my best not to wade too far out into the depths of the ocean,
Yeah.
Because
hopefully one of those crazy fish will wash up the shore.
Yeah.
And you'll see it. That'd be cool.
BXG podcast publishes every Friday at I'm going to do 9 because I made 9 a.m. safely last week. I think that's better than noon. So 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and other podcast services around the globe. Official BXG social media accounts on Facebook.com/BXG Podcast, Instagram at BXG Podcast. Twitter at BXG Podcasts, Instagram at GTFills at Y2B, Twitter at GTFilson at Y2B, YouTube for various video shenanigans. I recently posted the out of context video.
Incredible stuff.
Check that out. I thought it was really funny.
I have watched it a lot, and it makes me laugh every time. My favorite part is when I announce Dallas, though, and he does the turn.
Yeah.
It kills me every single time. I was walking upstairs the first time I watched it. I almost fell down when he does the turn. I almost fell down the stairs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. That's excellent work by you putting that together.
Thank you.
And I've heard good response from people saying that,
good.
I've shown people just randomly too. I'm like, you got to check this out. It's real funny.
Yeah. So we have one correction. It's a pretty glaring one. And it's that there's actually 16 episodes of The Bad Batch and not 14. I don't know how we missed that.
I swear I saw 14.
So did I. And we were talking about last week's episode, and we're like, how's this the next to last episode? This is the stinker. Well, it turns out it wasn't. So in the context of things, maybe not so much.
Yeah. So yeah.
But anyway,
it happens.
we have a great 6-pack tonight.
We do.
Lots of topics. We got some reviews and some movie news and all sorts of things. So yeah.
Let's move on into it. So number one, Marvel news. Is not a
what the Rock is cooking.
What the hell?
This is about to take off. God, it's the Rock's music. Business is about to pick up.
What the hell just happened? What just happened?
We're joined by John Kish.
Hi, John.
What's going on? So I don't know what's going on. The world's gone crazy. You know, Bren's told me all this stuff. I don't know if Millie Bobby Brown's going to pop out of the upside down and give me a bunch of nonsense about Hopper. But I got a man here who's broken toes in a non-contact sport, bad-mouthing a real-life superhero. I don't know. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Universally loved by everybody, but maybe you. I mean...
Correct. It's not that I don't love him. I just don't think his movies are good. He's whatever. His movies aren't good. That's like actually pretty critically
number one at the box office.
I don't care about that. That's like it's whatever. A lot of things are number one at the box office. Doesn't mean they're good.
I mean,
that's just.
I heard
he's the same character in every time. I have no problem with him doing the same thing. It's just I don't want people to say he's a good actor. He does the same role every time.
Oh my God. I heard last week that you're double vax. So hopefully you're double vax, double masked, and double depends, because I have all kinds of facts about The Rock to give you.
Hit me with them.
Back to back.
I'm not going to be impressed.
Back to back, highest paid actor in Hollywood. Going to go for 3 years in a row. $10.5 billion in sales. You know, 2017 NAACP Entertainer of the Year. He was also got nominated for a Golden Raspberry for a movie that you love to hate watch, which is amazing because he took
what movie was it?
It was Baywatch.
I think.
It made $170 million off his eyebrow, smile, and charisma.
Well, Zac Efron's also shirtless in that movie too, so it probably helped.
He made it worse, but again, he carried that movie. Like, this man, he's perfect, who's better than him? I mean,
I didn't say anyone's. There has to be somebody like him. I just don't think in his role, he's not someone that does anything. Like, he's not funny enough to be funny for me. He's not like actiony enough to be actiony for me. So for me, it's literally, it doesn't work for me. I'm okay with that. Brenton doesn't like Tom Cruise movies. I like Tom Cruise movies. We have our things. Tom Cruise is like all action, and he has no idea what humor is. But it's true. I'm saying the way the movies work is that he is not, if there's a joke, he's not in on it. And The Rock makes jokes. I don't think they work, but they're fine. And they're kids' movies. That's what they are. They're kids' action movies. I'm fine with it. He's not for me. I'm not saying he's bad on the grand scheme of things. He works for obviously millions of people. I'm not one of those millions of people.
Here's my issue. My issue is that this man asked you a question, value over replacement actor, and you skated on it.
I said last week there isn't someone better at what he does. I just don't think it's something to be better at. It's not. There's nothing for it to be. There's no. I don't want to see those movies. I don't care who's in it. Those kind of movies never work for me. I don't like these like pseudo kind of funny kind of action. Give me one or the other, and make them good. Also, that's a key. They're never good movies. So I'll give my chance on Moana. I'll watch Moana. I'm sure it'll be good because it's a Disney movie. That's not him actually acting.
Jungle Cruise is a Disney movie.
Yeah, but it's not
number one at the box
physically
office.
In it.
Number one.
I am not saying he's not appealing to other people.
Number one in your programs.
Everybody I know likes him. I do not like The Rock in movies as an actor. I like Rock as like an internet person. I follow him on Instagram. I like his motivational stuff. I like when he eats big meals. I think that's fun. I love his dedication to the craft. I respect the man in everything, except that I don't think his movies are good. But he knows to take those movies on. He's not doing like a dramatic piece trying to win an Oscar. Yep. That's not his lane, and he knows that.
Yeah,
that's cool. He will never do that.
How can you say The Rock is not funny when Kevin Hart picks him all the time? Kevin
Hart's not funny either. Oh my God! If we're gonna get Kevin Hart is not funny. Oh my God! Kevin Hart is like one of the least funny people there is.
Are you kidding?
He does nothing.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, we're just.
Well, it was a terrible show tonight.
What?
Yeah, Kevin Hart is not funny.
He's a top 5 stand-up comedian of all time.
No, he isn't.
He is.
No, he isn't. No, he isn't. He's not funny.
I find Kevin Hart to be very funny.
I
I do not at all. Wow, we're just not going to agree. This is fine. We are not going to agree on
Sometimes
this.
discourse is good.
Yeah, I just don't think. Oh wow, the Kevin Hart thing is way more outlandish than The Rock. Top 5 comedian of all time. That's bonkers. Stand up comedian.
Yes.
I don't know if he's top 5. I don't know if he's top 5 of all time, but I find him to be very funny.
I probably don't have him in my like top 20.
Oh my god! So you have
comedians of all time.
So Chappelle's probably better stand up.
Chappelle is a billion times better. This is not even a question.
Chris Rock is better.
Chris Rock, Jerry Seinfeld. Wow. I mean, Richard Pryor. I don't have my list. John Mulaney's funnier
than Kevin Hart. Oh my.
Yes, Kevin Hart is nothing. There's nothing funny about Kevin Hart. He's little and makes fun about being short. That's great. Move on. He's not that funny. That hit me harder than any Rock thing ever could.
I mean,
I'll just agree with the Rock thing. I'll be like, okay, he's good at acting. Let's not pretend Kevin Hart's that funny.
Like, do you just dislike?
He's base level funny.
Do you just dislike people
baseline funny
are like of the non-average height? Like, you don't like Kevin Hart? He's too short. The Rock's too big.
No, I like short people.
You don't. But
I like plenty of short people.
But you just said Kevin Hart.
I was literally.
No,
I didn't say it was. He makes fun about being short.
Listen,
that's his jokes. He makes fun of being short.
I
don't care about people being short.
We planned this to kind of ambush Greg. Mainly,
it was a total ambush, which is fine.
Mainly,
but the Kevin Hart thing is way more intense than The Rock. I don't even care about the Rock thing anymore. Top 5 comedian. This is just disappointing. You need to see more comedians.
Listen, we ambushed Greg. Mainly the theme music. That was my thing. I thought that
threw me off so much.
Yeah. But
holy cow. I appreciate you coming on, John. That was a fun discussion. I don't mind arguing with people. It's one of my favorite things. I used to just argue with Ty for the sake of argument, even if I agreed with him on something.
I had so much more to say about The Rock, but the Kevin Hart thing, like, it's just.
It is disappointing that you find him the top 5. I'm not saying he's baseline funny. I understand where he comes from. He's baseline funny.
Baseline funny.
John, we appreciate you coming on.
We do. Yeah, thanks for coming on, John. Even though we disagree, I'm glad you came on.
I had so much more. I had so much more shade to say about your opinion on The Rock, and now I'm just.
He's flummoxed.
Oh my god! Like, I was gonna say, like,
we feel the same way on opposite directions.
I was gonna say you shouldn't even be able to call John Mayer's album, Sob Rock, because it's offensive to you using his name. You should have to call it Sob Easy Listening. But I don't. You shook me so badly that I couldn't even make my punchline with the Kevin Hart take. Oh my gosh! Like,
that's funny.
Oh, I had so many good punchlines, and just you're like, Kevin Hart's garbage. It's like, oh my god.
I think it's garbage to say he's baseline funny.
Baseline funny for a comedian that's multiple Netflix, kind of like saying he's garbage. I don't know.
Well,
no, baseline funny.
Netflix. Larry the Cable Guy's got Netflix.
That's true.
Yeah, and he's not funny.
Real quick though, I think
we can agree on that. We can agree, Larry.
I think we all. None of us even said anything. We're just like we took that as fact and moved on.
Is he even funny? I don't even. No,
I don't think he's funny. No,
but no.
He's below baseline.
I did think though the replacement actor. I thought you could put Kevin James in the Tooth Fairy and it would have been extra funny, but it probably would have been R-rated. Remember the Tooth Fairy? Make Kevin James.
They made 2 of those.
They made 2.
There's 2. There's 2.
Who was in the second?
2 of them.
Yeah, The Rock.
He's in both of them.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I believe so. We were.
I will say that
I was looking stuff up about him today.
The charisma is
off the charts.
12 out of I just said we'll do 12 out of 10. That's what carries it. But the movies just aren't good for me. I'm sorry people that like the Rock movies.
I will say
he's good at what he does. His movies aren't good. Yeah.
Since we're here, I think I can't speak for John on this, but like for me, liking The Rock there is kind of like a tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. It's like, I know this isn't very good, but I like it because I like him. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If that makes sense. I legitimately like the first Jumanji. I thought it was very funny with The Rock and Kevin Hart and Jack Black. I almost said Blackjack Mulligan.
Blackjack.
For the wrestling fans out there. But I can't think of to Greg's point, I can't think of a movie outside of probably Jumanji where with The Rock, I'm like, yeah, let's watch that again. Jumanji's probably the only one. I'll watch Jumanji multiple times because I do think it's very funny. The other movie too is that I would say is rewatchable in the sense that it's very heartwarming is The Game Plan. Here's a fun fact for you. I've spent over $60 on The Game Plan because I went to see it in the theater, loaded up on snacks as I do, and I bought the DVD. So
that feels fair.
What's your go-to snack at the theater?
It used to be popcorn. Can't eat the popcorn anymore because of the hulls with the diverticulitis puts me at high risk for for a flare up. So now it's
went to sleep.
Reese's Pieces and Swedish Fish. But the next big Marvel movie, I'm just going to roll the dice on the popcorn.
Yeah,
but I'm going to be honest. It usually doesn't make it past the trailers. So
that popcorn's crazy because you can put as much butter as you want in the theater now. I don't know if you guys have that where you were at. I was at the theater in Hermitage. And I was just sitting there with the butter for like 10 minutes.
They let you put it on yourself.
Yeah, you can just swim in
Hermitage.
That
put it all. It's unfair. It's like I'm gonna have a
heart attack. One behind.
That's not even like butter too. That's the great thing about it. It's just some weird oil.
Oh,
is it the one behind Lowe's?
Yeah, so good. Oh my god, yeah. I watched the new.
I have to check that out.
I was just buttering the hell out of my popcorn.
I saw. Well, I didn't get popcorn because I went and saw Black Widow, but I didn't get popcorn because I was in the midst of the whole situation.
When I went and they told me I could do the butter there, I was uncomfortable. I was like, so you mean I can just put as much butter as I want and no one's gonna stop me? I can just stand.
I don't think anybody hates that. I don't think anybody hates that.
But I felt like I was doing something wrong. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you look around a little bit? Seeing if anyone was judging you? Because I definitely would initially be like, people are judging me how much butter I'm putting on here.
Well, my 16-year-old was with me. My 16-year-old was with me, and I'm looking at the other 16, 17-year-old that I paid the stuff for. I'm like, you're sure I'm okay? I'm like, on candid camera, no one's gonna get me one of those. What would you do situations? They got this guy with the butter, hogging the butter.
Oh, so good.
Oh, it was delicious.
Just out of curiosity, how many people were in your theater?
Maybe 15. It
wasn't,
but it was a weird. It was at 9:15 showing, and they had 12 showings of it from 8 to 10. So I miss days where it was one theater. You had to do it.
Yeah, that's how Black Widow was. It was in 3 theaters. It was rotating every half hour.
And
so,
and I know it's different where Greg's at, but we're at people generally are whatever here. They're just doing their own thing.
Well, and our county isn't bad.
No.
So, even with the rise in things, it's still maintained pretty low numbers. But anyway, listen, it was a good, quasi prank, I thought, Greg.
Fun. That was a great prank. It totally threw me. I'm all flustered now, which is
so we
it doesn't take that much to fluster me, as we know, but still. It's been a while.
We do appreciate you coming back.
Yeah, no problem. It was
Thanks, dude. Thanks for coming on.
I'm no Wes, but I tried,
So, that was pretty good.
Enjoy your Sob Easy listening tonight, and maybe you'll reconsider your life decisions with The Rock. I don't know.
Maybe I will.
Probably.
Maybe I'll go back. I'll have a come to Jesus moment, and I'll find my rock moment.
Your rock moment.
Moment.
Maybe you'll hit rock bottom,
and then you'll come back, and you'll know. That's it.
Hit rock bottom. That's exactly what would happen.
All right. Take care, John.
See you guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. I am definitely thrown off right now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now
I'm gonna have to. I don't want to report anybody.
Report him for that take on Kevin Hart.
All right. So I want to thank John for coming back to do that. That was real funny. And, we had he kind of messaged me and we kind of set that up through the week. And I thought it would be a fun surprise for Greg.
It was
kind of throw him off a little bit.
I am still I'm definitely thrown off, but it's okay. These things happen in life.
Yeah.
but we'll move on.
See, the thing about it is that because I do, because I'm always the Zoom host, you would never be able to do that, anything like that to me, because, like if you were like, hey, let me host the Zoom thing tonight, I'd be like, all right, something.
Something was up.
Yeah,
that's okay. I think it's better to come at me with something surprising.
Yeah,
unless
you're more
there's
easily flustered than I am, I would say.
Well, it's flustered, and then like my 0 to 100 of rage is
I don't think there was rage involved.
Well, once I got to Kevin Hart, I got sweaty. I wasn't sweaty, and like I got sweaty once we got to the Kevin Hart talk.
Yeah,
I was like, oh boy. But we'll move on.
We will move on to the actual six pack now.
To the actual show. That was fun. Hopefully I know how hopefully I know how to read now. All right. So Marvel news, which yeah.
Yep,
here we go.
That's number one.
That's number one. I know. It's just like Kevin Hart throwing me off. Okay. Maybe he's underneath me. Okay. Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney over a breach of contract. Her payment for Black Widow was tied to box office performance, and she was promised that the film would debut exclusively in theaters. Although the movie did well financially, much of that was due to Disney Plus Premier Access sales, which are not tied to the star's contract. In the wake of the announcement of the film that she was filming, so Emma Stone had considered doing the same, at a similar deal with Disney for Cruella. It is worth noting that the MCU boss, Kevin Feige, is furious with Disney over the treatment of the...
We're sure that's how that's pronounced, right?
Feige? That's how I've heard it on other podcasts. Yeah.
Okay.
So I assume that if we're wrong with everyone else.
Yeah.
Of MCU talent. Oh, what is my computer doing? MCU talent. And it seems Adobe. It seems there's not a coincidence that Johansson has made a decision in close proximity to Feige, making commentary about how MCU contracts will be handled in the future. It is not uncommon for movie stars to bet on themselves by turning down more base salary dollars in favor of box office incentives. Leonardo DiCaprio famously took a massive pay cut for Inception under his typical $20 million per film rate and tied his earnings to both box office as well as home video release numbers, and wound up with more than $50 million in earnings for the film. So that was my first thing on this is just like she got real screwed, but also contracts are contracts. So I hate to do that, but that was just like a bummer to say that.
Yeah, but you can't really, they should have tried to renegotiate in some way, because she made the movie, she signed the contract and made the movie. COVID wasn't a thing. I mean, this movie was supposed to come out over a year ago. You know what I mean? It was supposed to come out in like around Memorial Day of 2020. So I think the right thing to do would have been to say, okay, we're going to combine with Disney Plus. Right. And the reality of it is that it still wasn't going to be what it was. This movie, I don't know what the numbers on it are currently, but around like opening weekend or whatever, it was between the two, it was like 260 million, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie would have grossed, I don't know, like minimum 700 million.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Had all this not gone on. The reality of it too is pirating is a huge thing. You know, Black Widow was one of the most torrented movies ever, you know? And so like, that's the risk that you run when you go straight to stream, is that you are going to get pirated. You're going to lose revenue due to piracy. It's just how it is. It's what's taken a huge toll on the music industry, right? So that's kind of the thing that I think that these big studios has to weigh going forward is it worth doing the straight to video on demand thing for the sake of convenience, I suppose. And you're going to lose revenue in two different areas. Number one, you're going to lose it in piracy, because there's going to be piracy all over the place. Number two is when I buy a movie on Disney Plus or Prime or whatever, and you pay that upfront $30, you get it for 48 hours. So anybody who was going to see that movie again in theaters now just gets to watch it twice at home. So you're missing out on the people who go back and see movies multiple times. You know what I mean? I saw Infinity War and Endgame both 3 times a piece.
Yes.
So you're missing out on the repeat people. You know what I mean? So I do think that this will show the studios not to do the day and date release thing once things get like closer to normal. I believe that Shang-Chi, at least as of now, that may change with the rise of the Delta variant and all this stuff, is slated to be just in theaters come September. If it ends up being just in theaters, I don't know, because the way things are moving, you know, restrictions are popping back up, et cetera, et cetera. But I also think that this is going to throw, at least for the next couple of years, it's going to throw some caution at these actors and actresses who tie their salary to the box office, because this isn't Inception with not only is it going to make money at the box office, but also sell DVDs at home. I think DiCaprio's salary for that movie was like $5 million.
Yeah.
Like, he went way under because it was risky, but he thought, you know, I'm Leonardo freaking DiCaprio and this is a Christopher Nolan movie. It's going to make bank. And he made out on it.
Do you think, I mean, I don't even think that was a risk, you know, like when I read that and like realizing like he knows who he is, he knows who the director was. So that was like one of those funny things. Like, I feel like odds were in his favor on that one. Like,
well, Nolan was hot because that was around Dark Knight.
That was Batman time. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It was Batman.
So I don't know. It's just the premise of the film was risky in the sense that like nobody knows what's going on with this thing. You know what I mean? It's not clear cut.
That was Nolan's first movie after Batman, right?
I think it was in the midst.
Oh, okay.
I want to say it was between Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
Okay. I was like, I get all that timeline confused, but it was like, it was hot Nolan was what I'm basically getting at. It was, but I think, I mean, the thing I'll, you know, with Scarlett, cause it's a bummer. And just on this, you know, she'll probably end up making some money. There'll be some sort of offer made.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, but my thing is, do you think Disney was right for doing what they did, not based off the contract, but based on how they think they could have made the most money in this, you know, era right now?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I definitely think that that's the case for Cruella. I don't think that, because it was earlier too. I want to say
that was May.
Yeah. I don't believe that parents were going to be dragging their kids, because that's a kid movie, to the theater to see Cruella versus, you know, comic book people going to see comic book movies. So I definitely think that they made the correct decision in the case with Cruella. Yeah, I think so. It's just hard to say. I mean, we just talked to John. Fast and Furious, his theater was not very full. I don't know about yours when you saw Black Widow. Mine was like maybe a third full. But I also went in a weird time too. I went.
I went a super weird time.
I think I went to like 8:30 or 9, something like that. It wasn't like the premiere at like 7 p.m. show. You know what I mean? But it was opening night.
Yeah, I mean, like, I mean, that's one of those things. If you said it was like a third full opening night, I mean, you know, if you saw Endgame opening night, you could just had to buy in advance. You had to see it, which is what I did. I mean, we got midnight tickets, which were actually, I think, like 10 o'clock tickets the night before or whatever, you know, but they were sold out. I mean, this is when we lived in Alaska, and there was the one theater that does it.
Was it?
You know,
you were still in Alaska, 2019, 19?
Yeah. 2019. Yeah, this is 2021. 2019 is when we moved back, but that was the middle of the summer. So it was, so that was May, around, you know, always around my birthday with those movies. But
right.
And, you know, I mean, if you're seeing a 9:15 show, you just like, that doesn't, you couldn't walk in with Endgame, any of those last few Marvel movies. You're just not walking into. So I think they probably made the most money they could have, considering the climate. it just is a bummer for Scarlett Johansson. But the biggest bummer too is, like you said when we reviewed the movie, it came out the wrong time.
Yeah.
So there's also that at play too. It's like you could have just put this movie out 5 years ago where COVID didn't exist, and that movie makes $700-800 million, and she makes her money, and you know, it's all on that. So there's a lot of factors at risk, and like a lot of people through COVID, it just kind of sucked.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other aspect of this is it's she still made millions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm not going to really boo-hoo too much, because like I lost my actual day job for a while. You know what I mean? So it's not as, it's like I get it, but also first world problems.
It's one of those things where like you have to kind of do it because that's what the actor, like agent thing, they tell you to do these things more than it is you want to. It's like you have to kind of, if you're part of the players agreement or whatever, you know, the players union, you know, and like basketball or whatever, you kind of have to do stuff even if you don't want to, because that's what you just have to do.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that they're able to settle. I also liked, for what it's worth, that Fahey came out and was like pissed that like he considers them his people, you know what I mean? So I thought that was, you know, somebody going to bat for their people. I also think that the silence is kind of a little bit striking from a certain contingent of gentlemen, namely Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Mark Ruffalo.
It is weird. I mean, I guess, and this will be my thing with like Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. is they aren't in it
still,
and they may have, and there may also be some stuff in their contracts where they can't talk. There's probably, you know, there may be things where they actually can't. That's one of those weird things. At
this point though, they're not tied to that anymore, so they should be able to say
there might be a thing where like in their contracts, even like after, there's always like weird things. I am surprised. The person that's like the most surprising me is Chris. Oh, I was gonna say Chris Evans. He talks about he'll say anything. I mean, he like does not normally give a crap. So that is disappointing on his end. You know, being Captain America and standing for that and being like the voice of like, hey, when people are getting screwed, like I'm gonna come out. And there's bigger issues at hand and things like that. But it is weird that like, you know, literally none of the men in the movies are just like, yeah, we're not gonna stand up for Scarlett and
one of the original 6 Avengers. Come on, man.
Yeah. Definitely. It is disappointing on that. And, you know, like you said, there'll be a settlement, I'm sure.
Okay. Number 2 tonight. And we bring back our contributor, not a contributing artist, but contributing correspondent. How's that work?
Guy that's good at everything.
Like on the Daily Show, whenever John Oliver would pop up, it'd be like correspondent or whatever. Anyway,
I don't know what they call him. Yeah, I don't know what they call him.
Tyler McAfoose. Greg gracefully bowed out for this segment because he said, I've got nothing to add to it. So you know, he segued on out of this one for a little bit so that we can talk about a game that we both recently played and beat, Trigger Witch. Trigger Witch is the second game from New Zealand-based indie studio Rainbite, their first one being Reverie in 2018. And the team consists primarily of 3 members, although if you go through the credits, obviously they do, you know, contract out for sound and art and shit like that, which is not uncommon for small indie teams. So we kind of have this broken down into 3 sort of subsections. The gameplay, which is literally, you know, how the game plays, how it runs, what the mechanics are and things like that. The presentation, which is, you know, how it looks, how it sounds, that sort of thing. And then finally the narrative or the story. It'll be down the line, but we are going to spoil the story a little bit because it's hard to talk about this game without talking about the big twist that comes towards the end. But we will put that towards the end of the conversation and we'll do, you know, like spoiler warnings or whatever. The game itself, so Trigger Witch, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Xbox, I think it's on PC as well, is a twin stick shooter in which players control a witch named Colette and navigate her on a journey where she uses the tried and true witch tenets of heavy duty firearms rather than spells. Players are equipped with hand cannons, AK-47s, Uzis, flamethrowers, and much more. So just for the layperson, a twin stick shooter is where on the left stick you control the movement of the character, and on the right stick you aim, and then you shoot, with one of the back triggers. So from just a pure gameplay standpoint,
is like Call of Duty a twin stick shooter?
It's a first person shooter.
Oh, okay.
So I guess technically you could say that it is, but you're in that first person.
This is a third person.
Kind of. I mean, that's an oversimplification. What's the Falcon and the Winter Soldier meme? It's an oversimplification, but he's not wrong.
Yeah.
So from a pure gameplay standpoint, and just to throw out maybe some other twin stick shooters that are kind of out there, Resogun is probably the best that I've played, which is a PS4 early PS4 exclusive from now first party Housemarque. It's awesome. It's all about score chasing. Dead Nation is another one. Helldivers is another one. So those are just some twin stick shooters. This was, I'm assuming, your first experience with a game like this?
In many aspects, yes. As you said, left stick controlling the direction of the person, right stick. I mean, I've played first person games like this where you're aiming like higher and lower, but like this being a 2D game, it takes a lot of that out of it. And it's actually something that I can play because I get super dizzy and disoriented playing first person shooters where you're controlling and spinning and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So from a base gameplay, without getting into, the look, the feel, the story, things like that, how did you enjoy the game?
So there's the beginning of the tutorial, the training. I was still pretty bad at the game. And then the first few dungeons, I was still pretty bad at the game. And I think it just takes a long time to get your upgrades. And once you get your upgrades, the game becomes a lot more playable, I guess. But I was dying all the time.
Yeah.
The game's very forgiving, though. When you die, you just go right back to the same room with full health and full everything. And but
try again. Basically, it's
right.
not.
Yeah.
It's not.
All the enemies come back to life, though. That's one thing.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, okay, so the guns and that sort of thing play, obviously, if you're a witch, you're expecting maybe, magic, fire,
some kind
ice.
of spell, or
sure.
Unlock an ice rod or something. Yeah.
From this point of view, and was it kind of like did you think it was kind of like a fun change of pace too? I mean, there's obviously like some humor involved in this, and we'll get further along with that. But,
there were a couple of things that you would expect in a game like this that just were not there. And I think that was by design. As you said, spells or potions or something other than just health. I guess that's ammunition. So ammunition was the second component to it, that you had to switch between weapons when you're out of ammunition. And each of the guns was used in a different way. So like some of them were OP in certain situations, and some of them were completely useless for most of the game. I never used them at all.
Right.
So maybe some balancing in the weapons might have been neat. You could have used more of them. They did a really good job with the different puzzles and things like that, where you had to start learning new skills throughout the game. So it ended up making me better at it. But
yeah, I think like the main thing, as you said, the learning curve is kind of high at the beginning. And it's really, for me, it was, the tutorial was not too bad. The first dungeon really, really kicked my ass. I think I died on the boss there, which was the broomstick boss, one of the broomstick sections, a lot. I think I died maybe 7 or 8 times. And it was getting a hold of being able to use the dash mechanic in a consistent fashion, because I think it's easy to use when you're just kind of on the map and there's not that many enemies that you're dealing with, and it's easy to kind of maneuver around the room or the world map. But once you actually get into a situation where it's like, shit, there's a lot of guys here and I have to take them down, I'm relying very heavily on the guns that I was using. I need to figure out a way to use the dash, to remind myself to use the dash button more consistently. And once I got a hold of that, it was pretty easy peasy, lemon squeezy for me. I think there was one other boss that took me maybe like 3 or 4 tries, but outside of that, the game scaled pretty easily after that first dungeon. Which now we'll kind of move on to just the presentation. The game's obviously 2D, top down, sprite based. It clearly draws inspiration from a lot of action RPGs from the SNES and PS1 era. The music for the game also will feel pretty familiar to gamers who've played a lot of games in that era. I know with Reverie, their first game, they said they drew a lot from Link to the Past and Earthbound. I think with this, there's a lot of like The Secret of Mana, that sort of thing, maybe some Chrono Trigger. The sound effects of the guns cocking and loading was a nice touch. I felt like it hit, kind of hit home with bullets what the game was. Yeah, bullets dropping out, the gore that was just completely excessive, but in a very comical way. Like, there's an option to turn it off. Yeah, there's an option to turn it off to like pinata mode or whatever, but it was just like you take out like a group of 7 or 8 enemies and it looked like the Battle of Falkirk and Braveheart. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question regarding that. If you played this on pinata mode, would you play it in front of your kids?
I don't know. Like maybe, my son plays Minecraft and he's like understands like you have to kill creepers to get stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
think it'd just be colorful enough. The thing that would prevent me from doing it is you're shooting guns at enemies. Right. But there wouldn't be as much violence really because there's no gore. It'd just be like poof, and then some gems pop out. So that'd be kind of colorful and fun. Right. But I really don't think my 4-year-old would be ready for something like this.
No, I don't think that I'd probably, play this with the blood and guts on.
Absolutely not with the guts on. No.
With my kids, but with a 6-year-old, but he's still not there yet in terms of being able to control a game at the rate, because you do have to play this pretty fast.
Yes,
I would say that's part of it, is you do have to play the game quickly, moving around the room, that sort of thing, to be able to be quote unquote to get good at it. You do. I like games like that. I like playing fast. Especially with 2D games, because there's just a feeling of being, for me, there's more of a feeling of being in control of the game. I just like the speed aspect of it. So I did like that. We'll move on to the actual like story, which I think is really of this game. I found the gameplay loop to be pretty fun. It's a short game. It took me 9.5 hours to platinum trophy, which means get everything in the game. It was fun. It moved quickly. Once I got past that first dungeon, it wasn't very difficult for me, minus maybe 1 or 2 things. But I really think what makes this game, at least for me, is the narrative, is the plot, which is crazy. Like at the end, like it seems very like
it's
there's
very cookie cutter and it's very cookie cutter and straightforward for the first 75 to 80% of the game, and then
there's yes, it's the trappings of this kind of story. There's some good tongue-in-cheek references and different things.
Really good writing
some
for a shorter game.
Yeah, definitely very good writing. But this is where we're going to spoil things, so here's your spoiler alert.
Yeah, tune out if you want to play this game. You absolutely should play this game just for the ending, and it's such a short game, so you should try it.
And it's like $12, $15, you know what I mean? There's no excuse. So the story, witches and goblins live separated by a void. I'm leaving some things out to, but when the witches come of age, they are given the chance to join the Clip, which is an army of gun-toting witches that protect their realm. On the day of her trial, Colette sees a mysterious man in black and goes on a quest to rid the realm of this antagonist. She braves several dungeons on her way to rescue her mother, who was captured by the man in black. She follows him into the void to reveal that he is actual literal Joseph Stalin, and he must be defeated before he uses the magic to create an army of magic soldiers capable of world domination.
He talks about socialism. He talks about how he's going to use this magic for
the whole nine. It's literal. You go through what, and that's what. And we were talking before we started recording, and I remember, because I've beaten this a few days ago now, but going through, and it's like you see these soldiers and they're like very human, whereas the rest of the characters that you're fighting are monsters and different,
or literal like things. Radishes and onions,
right? You go through, it's like a soldier, and I'm like looking at the floor, and the last gun you get is called like Tesla's something or other. I'm looking at the floor, and there's like red with like the hammer and sickle, and I'm like, is it going to be Joseph Stalin? And then he just, in a flourish, whips off the cape, and it's actual Joseph Stalin. Completely insane, but I loved it. You know what I mean? I thought it was hilarious, and which is obviously what they were going for.
Yeah, as I was getting closer and closer to the end, I had either heard from you or just whisperings that, hey, get ready for a crazy twist at the end. Yes. I was like, every time the man in black would show up as a character and you'd read something he says, like, what's going on? I think this guy has a mustache. Like, maybe I know who this guy is. And then I started thinking crazy stuff, like maybe it's like Jack Black or Nacho Libre or something, and he's going to have like a unitard or something. But
yeah, it was certainly a surprise, because by like we both said, minus a few sort of like fun references. I believe in one of the goblin tents there's a reference to The Princess Bride. I don't know if you caught that. There's like they're like wine glasses, and he says something about, or she says something about inconceivable.
Oh, I've heard. I didn't really put the two together, but that's amazing.
Yeah. I think that it was a reference. There was some, different references to like this. One of the trophies was called like the sacred symbols, which is the PlayStation symbols and stuff like that. So there were some good like Easter eggy references, but for the most part, it was kind of a by the numbers. Like, I have to save the realm from this bad guy. I have to go
upgrade your weapons, upgrade your potions, whatever. Yeah.
Get these ingredients to bring down this wall that separates us. And then,
I mean, I'll give them credit that the guns, instead of like swords and shields and armor and upgrades and going and getting specific tokens and things like that will give you special powers. Witches with guns is not something that I would expect ever,
right?
That it was kind of neat. Like the trailer was very captivating when you see the trailer, and it's just like, oh, little witch, and then it's just like destruction and chaos and death. Which is amplified at the very end of the game as well. Like with I don't know if we want to talk about the two murders at the end of the game.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we've already spoiled the fact that the main bad guy is,
Joseph
the
Stalin,
leader of communist Russia.
It doesn't get much bigger than that.
Yeah. So her mother is just like shot in the head in front of her.
And then you shoot Joseph Stalin in the head and explode him everywhere.
Yes.
And then,
After he rockets to the fucking moon, and you follow him on your broomstick.
As violent as cartoon 2D gameplay can be, it's not like, a rated R movie.
It's so over the top that it's like obviously tongue in cheek. How
they're trying to make you laugh. Yes, they're like, oh my God, that was ridiculous.
Yeah. This isn't like realistic, like, 6 Days in Fallujah violence or something like that. It's very cartoony, over the top.
Yeah.
What did you think? Because with the mechanics, we didn't really talk about this, the broomstick sections. How did you feel? Because those were a little bit different.
Yeah, it was I'm going to actually say it was annoying that you could only shoot straight up. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like any other part of the game, you have complete mobility to do whatever you want. I guess they maybe don't want you to spin around and get facing the wrong way or something, but
Yeah.
I think that you could still aim your gun at an angle and still be facing up the entire time, and that wouldn't take anything away. It would actually make the game a little bit more, I guess, playable. Maybe it's like a nod to like Contra or something where you can only shoot.
Right.
I think Contra you can actually shoot on an angle though. I don't remember.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Games like that though.
Yeah. So the only other thing that I would really add or really ask, did you try like any of the optional stuff like the arena? Did you go for as far as like the trophies, did you specifically seek out like all the weapon pieces and there's like the little casino pinball game and stuff like that? Yeah, you're not like a trophy guy like I am, so
no, but I didn't even know really trophies was a thing until I started figuring out that Brenton has like 100 platinum trophies or something insane.
Right.
And realized 84. Like how much 84, okay, how much of an accomplishment that is. But then normally when I play like an RPG or an action adventure game or something like that, I get distracted. So like this game took me 11 hours to beat, and sure. Brenton platinumed it in 9.5 hours.
Yeah.
But I get distracted just exploring every nook and cranny and trying to figure out like, is there a secret here or whatever? And then in this game, you can actually buy maps that show you where all the secrets are. Mm-hmm. And then once you find out where the secret is, you still have to figure out how to get there.
Right.
So some of that's a bit tedious and time consuming because the like quick travel in a lot of games is great. This one, it was okay. I think that there could have been better quick travel.
I would have liked to be able to quick travel somewhere in the Goblin world, because really all you could do is come back to your home, like kind of home base sort of deal. Yeah. I would have liked something to go up north, but some of those hidden chests were. I'll be 100% honest. I beat the game and I had to use the video to find the last like 6 or 7, which I'm not above doing that if I,
Wow. I didn't use any videos or anything like that. I think the game was linear enough that I could figure it out if I just spent the time, which if you probably spent two more hours, you would have figured it out. But you just have to buy maps and there's a question mark sitting right on the map for you.
Right.
And then it's just a matter of, well, how the hell do I get there?
Right. Because there were some where it's like the question mark is center bottom, but the entrance and you go through a cave is like way up here. Yeah. So there was that's what I mean. Like the last like 6 or 7 were kind of a pain to track down from that perspective, because most of them were like half of them were already in the dungeons.
Yeah.
And those were easy to find, but that was the last one that I didn't have. And I was like, where the hell? Cause I had all the upgrades on everything. And I'm like, I'm missing one. Where the hell is it? You know what I mean? There's no question marks on the map. So I had to start going back through the dungeon.
Into each individual dungeon?
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, it was the second one that I went into, where it was like, okay, because it ends up putting a question mark on the map after the fact when the dungeon's clear or whatever. And the dungeons weren't like, too cumbersome. And there's like ways to teleport through to kind of cut down on the travel and such. But, it wasn't like going through a dungeon and like Link to the Past or something, you know what I mean? Where it's like, if you miss the treasure chest in room whatever on floor B, it's going to take you an hour and a half to get there. It was not
all the monsters are dead, so you can just scroll back through.
Yeah. That was.
It was very. I mean, you brought Link to the Past twice now. I mean, it was very Link to the Past for me, or Secret of Mana. Like the aesthetic of it was extremely stolen in my mind. It actually made me feel like, how did they get away with this? To a point. And like you said, the music. I wonder if it's like the David Bowie Vanilla Ice, where it's like, yeah, we stole this, but we're not going to say we stole it. Like, we just changed one little note here or there, and that's fine.
I don't think the music's that glaring, but
it's just nostalgic. It's just very reminiscent of that era of games. So I wonder if I'd have to do some research, but like, I wonder if the exact same composer does like all of those games, like the Dragon Quest games or the
I know the same guy does most of the Final Fantasy stuff. I can tell you that pretty much for sure. But like I said, this is for me, it's a play. It's like it's $15. I think it was $12.50 on PS Plus, like day and date when it came out. So it was already discounted a little bit. If you're on Xbox, if you're on Switch, it's going to be comparable. The prices that are, I don't think are changed too much based on the system. And it's just a fun, for me, games like this are they're like awesome palate cleansers when you're playing shit that's like hyper realistic all the time. Like you go from playing Spider-Man or The Last of Us or, God of War. Lately I've been playing Far Cry or whatever. And it's all these like super realistic environments. It's just very nice to just kind of step back into what it was like to be a gamer in 1995. You know what I mean? With this sort of aesthetic
but you're smart enough now to figure out the puzzles.
Yeah, well, and I can read.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that was one of the hangups for me trying to play Final Fantasy when I was like 7, and I couldn't. I read like every fourth word I understood. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just
not really even in English at that point. It's like its own language too.
Yeah, well, there's bad translation, bad localization, and stuff like that. And that's how you get things like all your base are belong to us. But it's definitely a play for me, and I liked it enough that I went and I purchased their first game, Reverie. I haven't gotten into it yet, but it is on my cross media bar, and I do plan.
How much is Reverie?
I think it was like $10 too. So maybe 10, 12. It's in the same thing, and it's very impressive for, I think, a team of 3 people to be able to pull something off like this. And we talked about that they probably subcontract with stuff. And
we've talked in the past about we could write a video game at this point, and you said, well, I'm actually writing something. I don't know what you're writing, but I don't know if that has gotten tabled for this, but the storyline is just so cookie cutter in almost all of these games that we could recite them chapter and verse at this point. So creating our own. I'm not sure
I'd come up with Joseph Stalin.
Well, I think that's kind of the neat thing about this game is they obviously were aware that there is such a cookie cutter mentality to this kind of a game, and the storyline and the story arc, and it's going to be the hero saves the day and everything else. So kind of masking the villain for the entirety of the game and then revealing at the final minute, it was hilarious. Perfectly done. So I'm going to say it's a play as well. I don't even play that many games, but I'm glad that Brenton turned me on to this one.
Thanks for coming on, contributing correspondent Ty McAfoose. Trigger Witch out now, Rainbite Studios, indie games. I love indies, mainly because they're very affordable. But
nice.
All right, take care, my friend.
Yep, later.
All right, so we'll move on, and this will be our second Disney thing, unless you want to count The Rock. Then
Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise. We'll move on to Bad Batch episode 14. Not the final episode.
Not at all.
I don't know what you call the third to final episode, the Dry Ultimate. I don't know. Anyhow, War Mantle. The episode begins with an unknown clone trooper being hunted and captured by the Empire. The Batch gets a request from Rex to, you guessed it, search and rescue the missing clone. Clone Force 99 heads to the remote planet of Darrow to rescue the captive clone. They locate him in a hidden base and notice some key differences. The architecture looks much like what we see later in the Death Star and other Imperial establishments. The troopers, who now bear the TK designation, look more like the troopers we see in the OG trilogy, and they are not clones. They rescue their comrades. They rescue their comrade, and as they're about to make their escapes, are pursued by new fighters that look similar and sound a lot like TIE fighters. In the escape, Hunter does not make it on board the shuttle and falls to the floor below. The rest of the crew, heeds his advice and escapes, and he is captured and comes face to face with Crosshair. So, what did you think, Fred?
Really good episode. Now that I understand that things are actually being set up for the end instead of just like us thinking they were being set up. I don't know how.
I'm still convinced that I saw 14 episodes.
I thought I did too. I swear to you.
I should have screenshot it. Yeah.
Yeah. What are you gonna do? No, this was good, and the action was good. The neat things, and we've said this all along, the transition from the Republic, the clone army to the Empire is kind of what this show is driving at.
Yeah.
That's the overarching theme here. It's, you know, it's the Bad Batch and their defective clones, and they're part of the Clone Wars show. And it brings in all these cameos from the Clone Wars and the Rebels and the Mandalorian to an extent and all these things. But the real overarching theme is how we get from the Republic to the Empire. And this worked for me in the sense that the stormtroopers no longer look like the clones, but they're not quite the whole way to the stormtroopers. The helmets are a little boxy on top, which was weird. But then also just the architecture of the base. And that's not something that they necessarily point out. They point out the stormtrooper thing, like, oh, they got a redesign or whatever, but they don't necessarily point out the architecture of the base. And it's very, the doors on the Death Star, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The blast doors, exactly how they are on the Death Star. The the ships that they come out to try to shoot down the shuttle make the TIE fighter noise. They make that kind of, you know, that screaming, wow, you know, that noise that is different, that you know it's a TIE fighter, not an X-Wing or a Y-Wing or whatever. Right. As far as the actual story went, I mean, this is kind of where we sort of saw things going, was that someone was going to get captured. I think we were in agreement. We thought it was going to be Omega, where it actually ends up being Hunter. The other wrinkle of this is that the people on Kamino, the Kaminans, I think they refer to them as, they basically say, we're going to get rid of you, Prime Minister, but we have need for you, scientist lady. So that's an extra wrinkle to kind of look forward to. But the last two episodes now, I do think we are in, like, you know, where we're going to be with this show.
Yeah, this episode had the most drama in a while. And this is just like, and you're speaking of like way things looked, and just the production of this, what is it, the wipe slides when they go from each scene to scene.
Yep.
Very actually was more like the original Star Wars, not because they changed those with the newer Star Wars, but this was more like the first three, the 4, 5, and 6, but the first three Star Wars too. I was like, that was the first thing I thought. I was like, whoa, this has like original Star Wars vibe hard.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you look at the architecture, and I mean, it just, I think a lot of us predicted this with this show. You and I both said if Darth Vader doesn't show up, I think we're going to be kind of shocked. I feel like I would be a little bit, the way things are moving. But when the TIE fighters came on the screen, that was so sick.
They're a little bit different. They're still a little bit different, but like, it does show like the progression.
Yeah, it's not the exact TIE fighters, but just the way the wings are. I mean, when you see the wings like that on a starship, or an Imperial starship, it's cool. Yeah. Starfighter, sorry. That's so cool. No, this episode was great. It was like one of those things where I was like watching at the very beginning, and you just realize, oh, this is another, let's go out and do something, find someone, bring them back. But then it immediately becomes like a mini movie, where little things were like little, Easter eggy and fun things. And then just the way it ends with Hunter being captured and Crosshair's there. He's like, oh, I thought I'd have the whole thing, but you'll do.
You'll do.
Yeah. And it was like, that was such a perfect way to end it too. Like as much as we, I know we thought last week was a penalty, but even if it wasn't, that was still a boring episode. Like I'm not going to, whatever it was at the end of the day, no matter what episode. It was still filler, and nothing happened. This episode had so much happen, and it made me so stoked. It's one of those things where you see that episode, and I was like, man, I wish I could just see next week's now. Like, I was so ready to just bust into next week's episode. It ended, and I literally did the like snap my fingers, like, dang, this was great. And it makes me. They took last week and they just basically did a 180. Nothing happened till a lot happened, and it makes me excited. Yeah. I'm glad where this show's going.
Where I'm at now, despite all the cameos and everything, I don't think Vader's going to show up. I'll be actually really surprised if he does.
Oh, okay.
I believed we were going to get, because they spent so much time on Ord Mantell, I thought there was a good chance we might get Maul. But
yeah,
it seems like where it's headed, despite all the cameos, that it's going to remain relatively contained. But there's still the loose thread of we saw what we thought was Ahsoka, and we thought we saw hints of this character, that character. We saw Bib Fortuna, which was awesome. But it seems to me now that a lot of it's just building out the universe, letting you know that these people exist in the same space, and kind of just leaving it there and allowing them to kind of continue on their contained story, which I think is the smart thing to do, which I have felt like that is what has made The Mandalorian so successful, is that they didn't rely too heavily on cameos. Obviously, we got Boba Fett, and we got somebody at the end of the last episode of the second season that was a pretty big deal. Yeah. But even that was only, 4 minutes of the last episode of one season.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're not. Whereas the movies failed, in my opinion, my most humble opinion, that the sequel trilogy failed because of an over reliance on the legacy characters versus just keeping them to smallish roles. I honestly think what they did with in the Rise of Skywalker, how they treated Lando was how they should have treated all of them. It's like, you're here, we're going to acknowledge your existence, but you're not going to be a huge part of this, because he's got maybe like screen time. You know what I mean? If even that. So, yeah. Just real quick, and this goes back to a previous topic. I just want to get this in here while I am thinking of it, because we talked about, in topic number 1, we talked about the order of the Nolan movies. Batman Begins 2005, The Prestige 2006, Dark Knight 2008, Inception 2010, Dark Knight Rises 2012. But I think
how many directors have that run? That's a good run.
Yeah, I think The Prestige was actually filmed much earlier than that, and it just didn't release.
I mean, we're gonna at some point we have a Christopher Nolan
November
pod. Yeah, so
Nolan
November, baby. It's gonna be amazing. If you haven't watched them, watch all of them. Just watch all of them. You're not gonna be disappointed. You'll be confused.
There's 2 movies. There's 2 movies I haven't seen. There's 2 Nolan movies that I haven't seen.
What have you not seen?
Insomnia.
Okay.
And I haven't seen Dunkirk the whole way through. I started it, and then the version I was watching had like bad audio, and it jumped around a lot, like skipped or whatever. So I just didn't watch it. And then
I saw it in theaters, and maybe that's like why I love that so much, because that was such a great movie to see in theaters. So yeah, that's also just I'm just a Nolan stan, which we'll get into. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. I just wanted to come back to that because I had it at the moment when we were talking about that topic, and then we moved on. But I wanted to make sure that I got that in there. Number 4, the movie Stillwater and its star Matt Damon continue to dig their holes even deeper this week. Stillwater, a movie loosely based on the Amanda Knox story. Co-screenwriter Tom McCarthy of Spotlight fame said to Vanity Fair, quote, there were so many characters around the case that I really followed pretty closely, but really the first thing that I took away from it was what would it be like as an American student to go over to Europe for what should be one of the most exciting moments in a young adult life, and to find yourself in a tragedy, end quote. Knox recently came out against the movie because she does not like the idea of a movie profiting off of her likeness, while the filmmakers believe that while the story may be similar, the majority of the movie is a father-daughter relationship theme, and that the wrongful imprisonment is just part of the movie. Damon got in some heat. Matt Damon, to clarify, not Johnny Damon, former Red Sox outfielder. Matt Damon got in some heat after an interview with the UK Sunday Times, where he was quoted as saying that he stopped using a certain homophobic slur that begins with an F months ago. In a statement to Variety, Matt Damon said he has never used the word and could see how it got misinterpreted. He continued in the statement that during a recent interview, he recalled a discussion that he had with his daughter where he attempted to contextualize for her the progress that has been made, though by no means completed, since he was younger growing up in Boston. And as a child, he would hear that particular slur used on the street before he even knew what it was referred to. He's never called anyone that in his personal life. And the conversation with his daughter was not a personal awakening. I do not use slurs of any kind, the actor is quoted as saying.
It was weird. I wasn't sure where to go with this week, but then this like blew up my like news feed when you wake up in the morning and you're just like, I was like, a movie I care nothing about wanting to see is like 5 of my topics. It's sort of I have the UK Times is like one of my news feeds. And like, this is kind of weird. Like this Amanda Knox story, which was like one of the biggest stories. I don't know how many people are listening remember this story, but you know, she got wrongfully accused of like killing her roommate when she was over in Europe, and she went to jail, and she finally got acquitted because of it. And so like, it was gnarly though. She was like in prison for a while. And this movie is basically that. And you know, they even admit, you know, in the interview, it's just like, yeah, we saw that and we're, you know, loosely basing off this, but then she gets no recognition from this, which is kind of insane. This woman, you know, suffered for seemingly just being a roommate. And then when someone uses that as a storyline for a movie that's pretty blatant, it'd be different if like they even just don't mention her when they do interviews, but they're like, yeah, I saw that. I thought that'd be a good idea for a movie. And they're just nothing for her. So I thought that was super weird. I don't, you know, this is definitely someone that like, it seems like she got, you know, effed over twice. It's like the prison and then just somebody using this terrible moment in her life. So she has to rehash this again, which I'm sure is not easy for her to, you know, get away from initially. So it's crazy. It's crazy to me. And this is someone that did a journalism movie, one of the best journalism movies ever, just kind of, I don't know, being kind of wishy-washy with this.
So I'm looking at like the actual Amanda Knox, and then I'm looking at who's playing the character who's loosely based on her.
Yeah.
Who has the name of the character is Allison. So it's another A name.
Yeah.
It's Abigail Breslin, who's probably most famous for Little Miss Sunshine. She played the little girl. There's not like a super strong resemblance there, but I think that she probably has a legal leg to stand on as far as like at least being compensated in some way for this. It's probably, I think there's already show times for this, so it's already in the wild, or at least close to being in the wild. So I don't think she has a leg to stand on as far as getting it stopped. But here's my question for you. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this in a direction that you probably did not foresee. So she was a student who went to Europe and something bad befell her. And she was wrongfully imprisoned. That's accurate? Yes. Okay.
That's accurate.
So my question is I understand that she is upset that they're making a movie based on her life, but I want to know why she decided to base her life on the movie Taken, starring Liam Neeson.
I'm trying to.
I mean, that's a bold move.
It is a bold move.
It's a you know, we'll see how it pays off, Cotton.
I mean, you could say that, yeah, she did. I think people actually like initially made jokes before it actually was like, oh my God, she actually is going to go to jail for this. It was like initially it was like, oh, this is from Taken. Yeah. And then people were like, oh no, she actually is going to go to jail for murdering someone. And she actually
Liam Neeson
probably did
break her out.
And Liam Neeson's, they were like, everyone was like making jokes. Well, don't worry about it. I mean, like Liam Neeson's going to break you out. And then it's just like, oh wait, actually this is real and not a movie. This is not how this works.
Liam Neeson not being the lead in this movie is insulting to Liam Neeson.
Yeah, it is. He's probably just, you know, He probably watches this. He probably saw the previews for this and actually just thought he was in it.
He's got a legal leg to stand on here.
Yeah, he's probably just like, he probably was passively looking at this. He's like, I don't remember filming that movie. I don't remember filming that movie. And it's just like, just super like agitated. It's like, I don't. And then he sees Matt Damon. He's like, I don't remember doing a movie with Matt Damon, but okay. And didn't even think about it. And then just like impassive, like so funny.
Before we get to the Matt Damon thing,
yeah.
Is there an actor in Hollywood with a weirder career arc than Liam Neeson?
No. I think I've actually had
literally Oscar Schmidt.
And he was in Love Actually.
That doesn't mean anything to me. He was Oscar
Schmidt. He was in a romantic comedy, and then he does these action movies that are just bonkers.
Okay. Listen. There's plenty of actors that do romantic movies after they've done dramatic terms. Okay. Matthew McConaughey was the lawyer in Amistad. And then he went on a 10-year run of doing nothing but movies with Kate Hudson until the McConaughey renaissance. The McConaissance. Thank you. But Liam Neeson was literally Oscar Schmidt. And now it's like a fucking Fortnite skin. It's just like, he just makes Taken over and over again. It's just got a different name.
It's so weird. Yeah. As much
like you want to talk about, like you say about like the whole thing with The Rock making the same movie over and over again. Holy shit. Like all of Liam Neeson's movies just might as well be titled like generic action movie.
Oh yeah.
All be titled that.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that at all. He's the kind of, it's just, his movies there's no humor. He is just straight. This is action.
You have to find the humor.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to give you a perfect instance.
You have to find the humor.
I can't remember if it's in Taken or Taken 2 because I've seen them. I enjoy those movies.
I do too.
And a very
they are good. It's why you enjoy them because they're ridiculous.
But I think it's Taken 2. He's giving his daughter directions. Like he's like lying down in the seat of the car and she's driving and he's giving her directions. He's like the most aggressive GPS ever. Turn left.
That'd be fun if he was my GPS. Left. I would love to have him as my GPS.
I wish I made the joke around the time. Like, can that be one of the settings? It's like so you go through and it's like, it's like Australian accent. Just Liam Neeson is one of the choices. Anyway, Matt Damon apparently says things he shouldn't say.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is mostly just like, he just kept talking about it after it happened. Yeah. And that's what you don't do.
No.
You do your thing where like, you tell your publicist,
right,
I didn't say this.
Go away.
And then he just kept talking. And I saw a thing. It's like, you are a good actor and the best thing you can do is don't let people see your actual self. And so it's like, that's so weird. Like, and it's like, it'd be different if he was like 30, you know what I mean? Yeah. And you're like new to the game. Like if, I'm not going to say an actors I don't want to like, but it's just like if a 30-year-old
John
actor,
Cena.
There we go. I don't care.
Well, it's actually, it's a really good relevant example.
Yeah, it is actually relevant.
Film of their apology video to China.
It's just a good thing of like when you put your foot in your mouth, leave it in there until things pass.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And it's just, he's such a smart guy and he's definitely a universally liked guy in movies. I mean,
I think,
as an actor, I think he's like a 90, his movies are like, 90% of the time are good.
He always has like one that's really bad. Great Wall.
What's the really bad one?
It's called? I think it's called like The Great Wall. The Great Wall.
Oh yeah. But he literally like makes fun of that movie. Like
I would hope so.
He literally did it I read like an interview where he was just like, I did that for the paycheck. Like nobody would have turned that down. So it's just one of those things. He got paid in advance, like a lot of money, more money than he was like would have made anyway. So
I'm sure he didn't choose to tie that one to the box office.
He did not tie that to the box office.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we're moving on and to the ever-present summer segment of this episode, Summer of George, and we have the original friend of the program here. We're real happy to have him. Glad he's here. Glad I get to, officially meet him. It's David S. from Karns City. Woo! I'm surprised. I don't know how you're even on here. How are you able to get on here from there?
Listen, I had to go to the local library. Thank God that they were up at this time and they were able to hook me up.
They have dial-up?
Well,
they got the dial-up service still.
They have books there too. I'm actually shocked.
Magazines and newspapers.
Magazines and newspapers. So, we're extremely happy to have you. And he picked the opposite, which is a classic. We're returning back to a classic episode of Seinfeld. They're at Jerry's apartment. They're at the diner. It's one of my favorites too. I'm glad you picked it. So it's the 86th episode of the NBC sitcom Seinfeld, season 5, episode 22. It aired on May 19th, 1994. This was the first episode shot for season 5, but it was intended to be the season finale. This is the last episode for Tom Sharon's directing. Andy Ackerman took over as the primary director the following season and held that role until the end of the show's run. George decides to turn his life around by doing the exact opposite of what he would usually do. Elaine is having a lot of bad luck. Jerry keeps breaking even, and Kramer finally gets the coffee table book published. So this is, to me, I feel like anyone that's a fan of Seinfeld, this has to probably rank in the top 10. It just really does. I mean, this is a classic, like we said, set at the apartment, set at the diner, but it's truly a 4. Every single character gets their due. But Dave, why did you pick this episode? Why does this turn out to be one you wanted to do on the show?
Number one, I'm a huge George guy. So I wanted to pick an episode that was kind of, like you said, it is kind of scattered with a lot of every single character on the show, but it all kind of stems with George right from the beginning, talking about when they're in the cafeteria there where, they're talking about George's life not going the way he wants it to go. And all of a sudden he's going to do things the opposite way. That was the first reason why I picked it. Probably the second reason why I picked it is I feel like just growing up, we all had those friends where one person always seemed to have things always go their way no matter what. And then you had another friend that, no matter what he did, never seemed to go the right way. And then like Jerry in this episode, you always have that friend that's kind of that even Steven, that no matter what happens, they're going to just be okay and everything's just going to work out,
And then you have Kramer as just complete wild card. And I think that to me, it's hard to say what is like a pinnacle episode of Seinfeld, but to me, this is a good one. If you're like showing Seinfeld to someone for the first time, this is not the worst place to start because you really do get this this is kind of everybody's actual role on this show. George is down and out, but then he decides to do something that's completely irregular, which is kind of George anyhow, even though he says he's always stuck to this tried and true thing. But George gets himself into trouble because he does kind of the weirdest things possible. And this happened to be one where he does something weird and it turns out amazing. Something to me, I think that hits really early on is just when he goes up to the girl and he just completely bears it all. I live at home with my parents and it's just, and then she's interested. She's so interested. Yeah. And I watched this morning to prepare for this thing. Obviously, I've seen these episodes so many times, and then I realized, this is an episode where you laugh every 15 seconds, even if it's just a little chuckle. It really hits you. They really knew what they were doing at this point. This is peak Seinfeld seasons. Brenton, what stood out for you today when you were watching this?
I think that this is a really important episode because it's the one where George gets the job with the Yankees. The kind of is what now will regulate him for the next few seasons, where that's kind of an ever-present thing in George's life. And it's also nice because you get a little bit of Estelle and Jerry.
Yes.
Or not Jerry.
Well, Jerry Stiller.
Yeah, Jerry Stiller. What the hell is his dad's name? Frank. Completely blanked on that for a second. You get a little bit of them, and Elaine with the juju fruit or whatever, and that's a very Elaine thing to do. I think that really shows her character. I read one of the things that I read kind of leading up to this was that Regis Philbin was really upset that they made him keep saying this guy is bonkos.
Yeah.
He did not like that line. He was upset with the writers that they left it in. I don't really think it adds or subtracts anything to the episode, but the whole coffee table book of coffee tables, and it is actually a coffee table, if you don't have one, that whole thing is very Kramer. It is one of those episodes where it is kind of just a proto, cut from the mold Seinfeld episode. I will say, and I was just thinking this, we only have a few weeks left of the Summer of George, and I know if we get Jason on the episode we had talked about, I'm really surprised nobody picked the Soup Nazi, because it's almost like low-hanging fruit, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of the episode that everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that you make the point that this is a better episode where it's just like this is just what it is. George is nuts, Jerry's pretty much right in the middle, Elaine's kind of up and down, and Kramer has like the physical comedy, the sneezing with Mr.
Mr. Pitt, or
no, not Mr. Pitt.
Not Mr. Pitt. I always get his name confused too. Oh my God,
Pendant.
I had it there.
Pendant
Puzzle.
Yeah, whatever. And like Kramer flipping out, in the seat and everything, and then the big sneeze and what have you. It's just a very Seinfeld episode. It's a Seinfeld-y episode of Seinfeld. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, it's perfect way to describe it. David, do you have what's your favorite moment from the show? Be it a George moment, or I know since you said you're a George guy, your favorite George moment, or if it's something else, something else. But what's your favorite moment from this episode?
I was going to say, even though I am a huge George guy, and that is the reason why I picked this episode, I actually like the Juji fruit thing with Elaine. Yeah, I think it really gets kind of shadowed over in this episode a lot of the time, especially with what's going on with George as far as doing the opposite thing, and Kramer with the book thing. The whole Juji fruit thing kind of gets left in the balance sometimes in this episode. And that's actually one of my favorite things about the episode is just Elaine, doing her shenanigans, like Brenton said, kind of being Elaine as we know Elaine as far as the Seinfeld franchise goes, and kind of just being aloof to everything that's going on and getting herself Juji fruits and just continuing to eat them and kind of messing up the situation as far as her boyfriend in the hospital. And then she kind of messes up the situation with Mr. Lippman when it comes to
Lippman. Yes. Thank you. I don't know what happened
when it comes to dealing the deal with the Chinese guys, as far as the book deal goes.
In my head, that scene was always longer. Like where he can't shake their hand because he doesn't have his handkerchief because he left it.
It's very cringy. It's very cringy. Where
I think it's almost there's a really similar scene in Arrested Development. If you're familiar with Arrested Development, it's just more drawn out. And I think that there's part of me that even though the Arrested Development one is just completely insane, like what happens in that episode, where they're looking out at a model of like a housing development, and somebody shows up in like a rocket suit, and then somebody's in like a giant mole suit, and they think they're making fun of Godzilla or whatever. But I think that there's part of me that kind of like interjects just the length of that particular scene into this, because that's something that I always remember about this episode. I don't know why it's one of the things that sticks out of them, like not being able to sign this deal because he won't shake the guy's hand, which I don't understand how that's like not easily explained, but whatever.
Well,
it's Seinfeld.
You can't get into it. I will say my favorite moment. I have two things I want to get off. My favorite moment on is when George meets Steinbrenner and just bashes into him, and then Steinbrenner hires him. Yeah. And then Juji fruits became my candy of choice at movie theaters because of this. This is how impacted I was by Seinfeld. I ate Juji fruits every time I went to a movie theater. And what's funny about it is like, Jerry's like, why didn't you just eat it in the cab? She goes, well, I got popcorn too. And so she got popcorn and Juji fruits while Jake Jarmel is in the hospital. It's just so funny. I'm glad you picked this because we were kind of getting away from, I think, the essence of Seinfeld, and it's fine because all the episodes of Seinfeld for the most part are like really good, but I'm glad you brought us back to the Seinfeld earth. And do you have any final words you'd like to say about this episode or Seinfeld in general?
I just wanted to say too, what you were talking about with George getting hired there with the Yankees. This was also the first episode that Larry David actually played George Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and as a huge Larry David guy with Curb Your Enthusiasm and all that type of stuff too, this was actually the first time that Larry David played George Steinbrenner as far as the franchise goes too.
Yeah, it's just one of those like episodes that really, like you said, Brent, it really changes the direction of Seinfeld. You know, we're going one way, or George being a loser, and now he actually is like has a respectable job at Yankee Stadium, and you know, with the Yankees, and there's a lot of hijinks that ensue from that. So it's really a big turning point.
And I think it's a good place to leave off for a season 2.
Yeah,
it was a good, you know, jumping off point that you want to end a season on for George riding high, because that's a very rare thing. You know what I mean? He's usually not in that spot. So
and I just love too at the very end where Elaine looks like George. She's like, I'm turning into George. I'm George. And Elaine's like, no, don't say that. It's just, I don't know. It's you know, nobody's saying anything new when we talk about Seinfeld, but it's still fun. It's still fun to go back and be like, this is an episode that I would say every respectable Seinfeld fan has it in a very high ranking just because of what it does. So you picked a great episode, and it was awesome to have you on. We'll have to have you on for something else. I don't even care.
Absolutely.
Well, we're doing, I mean, the plan is Harry Potter down the line.
That's right. That's right. For Harry Potter. That'll be fun.
David S. is a Harry Potter connoisseur.
Of the Harry Potter world.
So he is.
I love it. That'll be fun.
So I am.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it. Nice meeting you again, dude.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Nice meeting you, Greg.
Nice meeting you.
Well, we move on here to number 6, and usually we do like a games wrap up or a movie wrap up, but it's a little bit more of a potpourri.
Oh, like Jeopardy.
Exactly.
I like that. I love when it's potpourri.
That's what I was thinking. So we've got some just potpourri sort of news. Hawkeye series gets a release date November 24th, allowing us a pre-Thanksgiving treat.
I love that. I love the idea of this coming out like right before Thanksgiving. So go see a movie, and then
it's not a movie.
I'm sorry, go see a series. I don't know why I said it. See a series, get myself like you go see a series. Go see a series on my TV. I gotta walk over to my TV. That's why I said that. No, it's like it's pumped. Like it gets me pumped up because it gives us like a series during the time where like nothing else is on.
Yeah.
And this is gonna be good. I mean, we know what we're getting, and I think it's gonna be a fun, like it's gonna be another ground series, which, you know, I'm a fan of the grounded Marvel.
Yeah. Bob Odenkirk is recovering after a small heart attack that hospitalized the Better Call Saul star. He reported that he is on the mend and thanked the medical team that somehow allowed him to avoid surgery.
I don't know how he avoided surgery. That was like the thing. It was like he had a heart attack. He's
gonna eventually have surgery. They're gonna have to put a pacemaker in or something.
They're gonna have to do something with him. Yeah. But hey, you know, whatever keeps Bob around.
Yeah. Keep him going.
Yeah.
We talked about it last week. New Shang-Chi trailer. Did you check that out? It's a shorter one.
It's a short one. It's awesome. I mean, this movie's I know it's very niche, but it does tie back to earlier Marvel with Iron Man.
Yeah.
So if you're like not sure, like, oh, I don't know, this isn't Tony, this isn't Steve, you know, it's like, this is going to be pretty cool going forward with like I think this is the kind of movie too, that'll like bring people back kind of I hope so. Bring people, you know, back into the theaters. It's going to be super actiony. It's going to be something you want to see on the screen. It's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And this was a smaller trailer, but it just made me more pumped if I could be for that.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to watch anything else from here on out. I mean, it's a month away.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to go. I'm ready for it. So
yeah.
New Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage trailer.
I'm all in this. I just got to watch the first one.
Yeah, we should probably like pick a week where it's slow and do a retro review.
And so it's weird to me because I was going to see this. I was going to see it in theaters, the first one, and it just kind of like slipped my mind. It was like one of those. That's when I was definitely living in Alaska, and the way our theaters were, it was like you had a one weekend, and then it was just gone. But yeah, it looks super good. I mean, it looks exactly, if you care about those characters at all in the comic books, it looks like that. It's like Venom, Carnage.
Woody Harrelson's character is like completely unnerving.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Carnage. I mean, if you read the Carnage series stuff in Spider-Man and Venom, it's almost weirdly accurate.
Yeah. He hits the nail on the head. Shifting gears a little bit to some video game news, Horizon Forbidden West is likely delayed until 2022. This is on the heels of second-party PlayStation exclusive Kenna Bridge of Spirits also being pushed back in September. Yeah, this is a real bummer. I was looking forward to playing Horizon this year, but now it looks like it won't be until next spring. This is a big one for you.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande comes to Fortnite in the form of a virtual concert. I'm sorry. From August 6th to August 8th, previous Fortnite virtual concerts were Travis Scott and Marshmello. With Fortnite being a free to play, and you can just download it for free, are you gonna check this out? I know you're a big Ariana Grande fan.
I may. I mean, that's right. That's like right in my window of where I work a lot. So
It'll be on
that's
YouTube.
I'll find it. I'll find it and watch it. I mean, why not? I mean,
I watched I didn't watch the
whole
whole thing. Yeah, but it's not gonna be her. It's gonna be.
I know it'll be like a Fortnite version. I mean, I'll probably I won't watch the whole thing. I will watch some of it and then be like, okay, it's not actually her. So
yeah, I watched a little bit of the Travis Scott thing. And
I did too.
A little bit of the Marshmello thing. It's cool that they're doing. It's cool that they're doing those things, but I hate Fortnite. So.
Yeah, it's just I don't like Fortnite either. I just don't like. What I think is like I don't know anything about the game. I never play it. I just hate all the dances and everything associated with it. And the people associated with it is what I hate. Sorry, that may be my thing.
Those people are usually 12-year-olds. So
I hate 12-year-olds.
Wow.
That's a bad look for me. I'm sorry.
It's not.
Sorry to all you 12-year-olds.
Jungle Cruise. Whoop, whoop.
They better pay us for this pod.
Starring The Rock and Emily Blunt took the box office crown this weekend with $34.2 million and an additional $30 million on Disney Plus.
And it's just $34.2 million. I remember the days where that was like, the fifth best movie in the theater. That's weird. I'm not saying
usually that used to be like an indie movie.
Yeah, that's like the indie, like an indie movie. Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I'm not saying that anything, against, whatever this movie is. That's just
Jungle
weird
Cruise.
To see that.
It's called Jungle Cruise.
No, I know,
but
but
Rock
it's like
and Emily Blunt.
Yeah, good for you being number one in the box office.
Good for hey, that's what The Rock does, man.
He does. He makes a lot of money. He also eats really big meals, which is fun.
Yeah.
He
does do that.
He's also very strong and could crush me very easily. No, don't do it. If he comes back, I'm just gonna quit the show. Just gonna quit the show right now. Put in my notice.
That's hilarious. Where am I even at? A small contingency of online douchebags are working to review bomb James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie. And here's your reminder to not be a douchebag.
Just don't do that.
This is so stupid. Like
it's
nobody
so bad.
cares. Like nobody cares.
Right.
Somebody tweeted him. They're like, "Oh man, some douchebags are review bombing me." He's like, "I don't care."
Right.
Like, I don't care. I'll live.
You guys suck. Yep.
So here's some what if tidbits for the series, which starts next week. Of course, we will have the weekly review of that. What if features four episodes with Chadwick Boseman. And one of the pitched episodes that was rejected, and it was rejected because it was essentially the second half of Guardians 3. So that's insane.
That's intriguing.
Because these are all nuts. Like, these are all pretty nuts. So for that to be a thing is pretty wild. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Brie Larson, Elizabeth Olsen, and Tom Holland do not voice their Marvel counterparts in the What If animated series debuting August 11th. But pretty much everyone else provides their voice to their likeness, including some really obscure callbacks. I read the full list and I was like, for some of them, I was like, who the hell are these people? So that was interesting. And then finally on the What If train, the show has been confirmed despite the animated anthology and fun approach to the series. It is in fact canon. As the head writer of the series, AC Bradley stated in an interview with IGN, quote, "The events of What If are canon. It's part of the MCU multiverse. The multiverse is here. It is real and it is absolutely fantastic, people," end quote.
I'm stoked.
Maybe a bridge too far for me.
Really?
I don't need Captain America's zombie being canon. Like that's unnecessary.
I mean, we'll just,
it's fun for
maybe
this.
when the actual storyline happens, though, when you see it, it's kind of weird. But like, I've seen Captain America as like zombie Captain America in comic books, so it is something that happens in the comic books too.
What If is a comic series. Like this isn't
Right.
something that just the MCU created for Disney Plus. It is a comic series. There is a comic series, which is pretty popular, but it's always like comics are weird. We've discussed this.
Yeah, they're the weirdest thing.
But like these What If things are even weirder, basically.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings Amazon series will debut in 2022 September. So we have a full year.
Full year to prep.
Yep.
There we go.
We'll need
see something we've already seen. But in television.
No, it's a different story.
I know. I just
it's just something that
excited about.
It's just something I don't want to see. There's a difference.
Yeah, I'm just not excited about it.
So here's the other one: is there's some hilarious trailers for the new Ryan Reynolds movie Free Guy. Have you seen?
Yeah, they're great.
Like there's with the dude one.
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, I can't fit the Deadpool costume anymore. I love that everything that he does involves Deadpool somehow.
Right. He petitioned so hard to have that movie made. So now he's just like, I'm Deadpool. I don't care what else I'm doing. This is what's happening now. You're either with it or you're against it, but you better be with it. So,
yeah, I don't know that I'll see that movie. Like maybe I'll see it when it's on like streaming or whatever, but I definitely am not going to see it in the theater, but
it's going to be funny. It will be funny. That is.
Yeah. I mean, the preview looked decent, I guess. Because was it a preview for you at Black Widow? Because it was for me.
No, I wasn't at Black Widow. Yeah, no. I just seen like TV trailers or whatever.
That's stupid. No, I got Free Guy.
I got
Free Guy in Jungle Cruise.
Yeah, okay.
So the box office smash hit Jungle Cruise.
34 million smash hit.
Hey, number one.
I know it's just weird to me that I'm so flustered that number is the box office number one.
Number one in your program, number one in your heart.
There you go.
Space Jam was number one 2 weeks ago.
That's where we're at with movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Quick hitters. Marvel is celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man in the upcoming time frame. So there's a lot of fan four and Spider-Man stuff going on.
Like original Spider-Man would be alive today. He's like 75. So he's not even that old.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like he'd still be like kind of
like you think about how time progresses in comics because you're only ever getting one, maybe 2 issues a month.
Right.
So like tops, you're getting 24 issues in a year. It's like, well, a story arc could take place over the course of like days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it take 3 months to resolve. So there is that whole aspect of it's 60 years, but the way time progresses in comics, it could literally only be like 6 months.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
the comics are crazy.
Crazy to think of. Well, comics are insane and they're awesome. Yep. Tony Hawk documentary is coming in 2022.
That'd be cool. I mean, like I wouldn't see it in theaters, but if it's like on Netflix, I would definitely want. Yeah,
especially
totally
if there's like a big part on like Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Oh, they'll 100% will be that. I mean, that's what
soundtracks were like crazy. That's what like
it changed.
He was popular, but that's what made him mainstream. Honestly,
yeah. I mean, it's literally the reason why like people will come up to him, you know, in an airport or something. He has like really good stories too. If you've ever heard him on like a podcast, he has the best stories. He really is like a really funny guy.
Yeah.
Who is one of those guys, like he's one of those people where it's like, you hate to say this because it's so cliche, but he is actually down to earth.
Yeah.
Like he literally is not someone you think has any money. He dresses like he doesn't have money. He talks like he doesn't have any money. He acts like it. I think this will be good because my thing is, as long as we're really focusing on, I know it's his movie and stuff, but it's like, I would rather just have him be interviewed a lot than even have other people talk about him. Cause I just think he's a real, like, to me, it's kind of funny how he isn't more of a thing actually, because he is so charismatic, but it's probably more of him than just, he probably just is fine not being out there as much because he's very charismatic.
It's just one of those things too, where it was an in the moment thing. It's like Tony Hawk Pro Skater and the X Games, and he does a 900, which nobody's ever done before, happened all, like, those were big deals.
Happened all at once.
All at the same time. And then it just kind of went away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was like that era of when we were probably like young teenagers, like 14, 15, 16, where it was like, it's cool to do all this. All of that stuff was like very niche before. And then the Pro Skater games come out, and then the X Games are big for a little bit. And then everybody's losing their mind because Tony Hawk did a 900 on a skateboard on a half pipe or whatever. All that happened within 24 months of each other. And then it just kind of went back to being a niche thing.
Right.
So he is like the stories of like people talking to him. Like, man, Anthony Hawk, that's so crazy. I used to play this game with this guy, Tony Hawk.
Yeah.
It's
right.
Yeah. His stories are really funny. Finally, on the quick hitter side, the largest Lego display ever was displayed this weekend. YouTuber Rich Boy J has, that's Rich Boy RichBoyJJHAE. He's been working on a replica of Starkiller base from The Force Awakens for over 2.5 years. It contains over 500 minifigures and several scenes. It's 6 feet wide and 23 feet long. It's on his YouTube channel. If you search that name, Rich Boy J, like, you can see
it's so gnarly.
It's so freaking cool.
Yeah.
I tried to reach out I reached out through Instagram for a comment just to see like his estimate on just how many pieces are actually in this whole thing. Just to see, because I 2.5 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the cool part about it is there's probably sets involved, but he's just making this. And that's a whole nother level of like being able to create with Legos. Because you see people, like, I put Lego sets together, I'm using the directions. You know what I mean?
Right.
You do actual Lego sets. Like, there's people out there who make what is, in my opinion, art with Legos.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was really cool. Check that out on
very
YouTube.
Cool. It's super cool.
Media recommendations.
So I'll promote myself here and just to start off. Last week, I was fortunate enough to do a book interview, author interview with Natasha Jakowski for her book Portrait Mirror, just because I've talked about this so much, and I was able to actually interview her for the Chaucer's YouTube channel. That was super cool. I want to thank Mike Takaguchi for actually doing that for me. He's the events coordinator there. So that was super cool. It was really fun talking to her. We actually talked 20 minutes before the show started, and he had to interrupt us. So I feel like I have a new best friend now. She's convinced me that I should probably wear, sorry, Renton, not a new, I
don't even care about that. I just want to know when she's coming on this show.
Well, I have to go through publishers and stuff like that. And I'm not a book. Yeah. I'm not a book.
You could have just slid it in there.
I know. You try with this kind of stuff, but she's convinced me maybe I should go after silk pajamas. And now I read up on silk pajamas, and actually really good for you. It's the silk is antibacterial or microbial, and whatever that stuff is, so you don't sweat as much, even if you're a sweater. I'm not a big sweater, but it's hot here now.
I want to thank you for the last 30 seconds, because that's all going to make it into the next out of context video. Continue.
Awesome. I'm stoked about that. Ted Lasso, of course. White Lotus, still watching that. I just started reading the book on the Wu-Tang, Streets of Shaolin. So just kind of trudged through. I read 2 really good books, like I mentioned on the show, and kind of just struggling getting back into something because I just really like those. So watching the Olympics, it's track week, so that means people running fast, which is my favorite thing during the Olympics. And like I said, Santa Barbara Baker, I did the video with John, and just music-wise, listen to the Bleachers' new album. Jackie Inanoff is the main guy behind the Bleachers. If you've listened to music, he's done everything from Lana Del Rey, Taylor Swift, Lorde, Sia, probably missing people. I think if I went through everybody, he produced the Chicks album. He goes everywhere. He writes music for everyone, and this is actually him doing music for himself. So, and his band, and Bruce Springsteen appears on it. He's from New Jersey. Jack is, so good connection there. Album's really good. It's pretty good rock music, so I recommend that to anyone out there. What about you, Brendan?
The only thing I really have is the game that we reviewed earlier that Ty came back on, Trigger Witch. It's really fun. It's short. I beat it in like I said, 9.5 hours, but it's very fun, and I believe that you should support indie creators like Rainbite Studios, who made Trigger Witch, and like the BXG podcast.
Definitely. 100%.
I will say this, and we are a quote unquote indie podcast, right? Because it's just the 2 of us doing whatever and
recording in our houses across the country from each other.
Exactly. But anybody who is in the same vein, whether it be like a movie or a documentary or a book or a video game or music, whatever, that wants to get their stuff out there, let us know.
Yeah.
And we will do what we can to promote you, because it's a symbiotic relationship. It promotes you and it promotes us, right? And I think for the most part, we're down to pretty much consume any type of media, as long as it's not like on purpose, like this is trash. But otherwise, Instagram us, Twitter, whatever, get a hold of us and say, hey, we know that you support indies. Hashtag BXG loves indies. I just made that up. Let us know, and we will.
I like it though.
We'll do something. You know what I mean? And we've got some, there's some other stuff upcoming with some things, so we're excited about. But
at the very worst, if you're out there too, I just want to point this out. If you're out there, at the very worst, you just get to promote and talk about what you love. And there's nothing better about that. That's why we do this. I mean, this is literally why we do it. And it's like, if you're making music or you're writing something or whatever, and you're an indie guy, guy or gal out there, just get in here and, it's going to be fun. I will guarantee you'll have a good time. That's another thing too. You'll have a lot of fun doing it. So
The Rock might show up.
Yeah.
He won't. He's not indie enough.
No, he's not indie enough. Maybe that's
the problem.
Maybe it is, except all my other things that I like are not indie at all. So
a lot
Bleachers is about as close. Like. It's funny. What's funny is like, I do like a lot of indie stuff, but then like stuff I really like aren't either. So, I'm all over the place. I'll listen if you're a musician and you want to send us stuff, I'll listen to anything. I have my music accounts for a reason. So I will listen and I will talk about your stuff.
Yeah. And I might.
And also, if you're also looking for a trip, I can't tell you, we're here in August, it's the dog days. You probably want to get away. It's probably hot and humid. I can't think of a better thing to do than a Royal Caribbean cruise line trip. I really can't. You can go somewhere. I don't know where you want to go. St. Bart's. I mean, it's gonna be warm down there, but it's a different kind of warm. You get the nice blue ocean. It's gonna be super nice. You're gonna be able to see everything. So even if you're Breton and you're scared of like crazy fish, you'll be able to see them. Well,
just don't like them. There's a difference.
You just don't like them. So you're like me and clowns. That's how I am with clowns.
Sure.
I'm not scared. I just don't like them. But yeah, book your Royal Caribbean trip. It's near. You want to do a trip before school starts, kids and parents. I mean, but for your kids. So Royal Caribbean, take everyone out. It's a great experience. Like I said, it's affordable prices for an unforgettable time. Royal Caribbean.
This is not a paid promotion. This is not a paid promotion. BXG podcast publishes every Friday, sometime whenever I get to it. Sometime between 9 and 12. I think I'm able to hit 9. And so that's better than 12. So 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 a.m. Pacific Time, 4 a.m. Hawaiian.
Aloha.
Where are we at on Australia? And you're the
it's 10. I'm sorry. It's like my brain stopped on it. It's 2 p.m. Saturday on
perfect.
one
mate.
part of Australia.
I don't think that's accurate.
And then it's I think 11 a.m. the other part of Australia. Australia is weird though. It's probably like one part of Australia doesn't even have the internet yet.
Or time.
I don't even know if they don't have time.
Or
it doesn't
time.
matter. Yeah, there's like time hasn't made it there yet.
On podcast services around the globe, BXG Podcasts publishes on Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts, Apple, the whole nine. Facebook.com/BXG Podcast, Instagram at BXG Podcast, at GTFills, at Y2B, Twitter at BXG Podcast, at GTFills, Sun at Y2B, YouTube for the videos. Check out the Out of Context. It's a minute and a half. It's 2 minutes long, and it's very funny.
Super funny.
So check that out. Check that out for sure. Tell your friends, tell your families.
Tell your mothers
About the unmistakable essence of the BXG podcast. Take care. BXG loves Indies. #.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. Royal Caribbean Cruises.